In this video, we're going to go over the labeling panel and how to effectively use it. To get to the labeling panel, click on the Processing tab and then click on Labeling. This is going to open up your labeling panel. This is quite similar to the Blade labeling panel, but with just some added functions. One of the first things you see is a list of all the markers that relate to your currently selected subject. If you wanted to change, you could click this and select a different subject or prop, and you could see their labels instead. The other thing you'll notice is that there is color variations as well as a red color. If there is different colors of yellow, that means that there are mislabels or missing labels. When it's red, it means that it is actually missing from the scene. Right now, the left heel does not show up in the scene. The next thing I wanted to point out is a new feature. Up here, if you click on the 3D, you're actually going to see a 3D layout of your labels related to this skeleton. This is extremely useful as it helps you quickly identify where markers should be or where they shouldn't be. Next, you can see that there's manual labeling options. There's a couple different things you can select here. In the first section, there's a mode. There's either select or label. This relates to how you select your markers and then label them, right? So with the select mode, you click on a marker here, and then you click on a label. Where in label mode, I click the label first, and then I click the marker I want. Next, you have a direction. You can do forwards and backwards, forwards, or backwards. I would find one way to label and stick with that, as if you try labeling forwards and backwards, sometimes you can get yourself in a pickle. The next thing I want to point out is the type. There's whole, which means it'll label the entire trajectory, fragment, which applies the trajectory when it intersects the current frame, cliff, and ranges. Ranges lets you select an area on your graph or your time and label just that range, where cliff looks for a certain value to cut it off. If you look right below, you can actually see how this applies. So it's going to skip a gap larger than 5 and stop when it's larger than 50 millimeters. Below that, you're going to see a manual labeling tools. If I open this up, this is how I can correct swaps, change and unlabel information, and also unlabel all markers if I really wanted to. Finally, I have a semi-automated labelers that people are used to, the velocity label. Now what I'm going to do is show you how to correct some labels that might occur during your takes. In this take, as I look through, I know he's going to sit down and I can expect the back markers to disappear and not come back. What I'm going to continue doing is scrolling through my data and looking for issues. I notice there are a lot of missing markers here. That's almost the entire waist, so I'm making sure it's not popping or moving. And I can just now, there we are, we can see that there is a swap that's occurred between the knee and the heel. Now, to correct this, there are a couple things I want to open up. First, I want to make sure my labeling is opened. Then, I want to split my screens, and I'm going to open up the graph view. This will just make it easier. Now, I'm going to select this heel, zoom in on the graph, and try to figure out where it happens. There I can quickly and easily see this weird transition. What I want this to be is I want this marker right here to be labeled with this current marker. So, making sure that I'm labeling from this point forward with a cliff, I am going to look for this heel marker. So this is my right heel. So I'm going to go to right heel, which is right here. Or to make sure that I'm selecting the right marker, I click here. And I can highlight it and I can see right heel. Perfect. So I want this marker to be, that marker to be right heel. So I'm going to do that and click right heel. There we go. So now I've unlabeled that marker and relabeled this marker. If I click on this, I can see this marker is now correct for all time. But we now have an issue that this marker is unlabeled from that point. So now I'm going to select this marker and figure out where it comes back in. There it is. So I can clearly see that there's some data that's just sort of sitting there, and I want to make sure that is filled in as the left knee. So again, I'm now going to show you a different way, which is the label way. So if I click label over here, I'm going to click left knee, and then I'm going to click the marker I want. There we go. So now I've labeled this as my left knee. Now, I wanted to show you one other way that we added in with this 3D labeling template layout, which is let me just undo that. So I now have an unlabeled marker again. Changes back to select. And if I select the marker I want here, I press Shift and Control, and then I click, and I'm going to drag it to this marker. There we go. So now what I've done is I've taken the marker I want here over to here. I see I missed a little bit of data. I'm going to go back and label that as well. So again, click the marker I want, Shift, Control, drag it all the way to the marker. And there we go. Now I've labeled that. So I've fixed that swap very easily. I want to keep going through the take to see what else I have. Maybe there's another issue that comes up. And, oh, there we go. I can actually easily see this marker is now unlabeled. Something else that I could have up, which I've actually closed down, is if I go to my view filters, I can turn on my labeling constraints and all my missing marker information. And there I can see where the missing markers are by showing the red. I like to turn this off during the labeling steps just so I can easily see the marker. There we go. So now let's relabel that marker. So what I'm going to do from here, again, I'm going to use the drag technique. So click the marker I want, Shift, Control, click and drag it. And there we go. Again, it's important to make sure you go to the first frame if you're labeling from this point forward instead of backwards. So again, Shift, Control, grab, drop. Make sure you click this first. As you saw, if you don't click the marker you want here first, it actually will not label. There we go. Now, as you scroll through, you'll see these flash in and out, and this will easily let you know which markers are currently not labeled. There we go. We've looked through some of the major issues that you may run into during labeling, like swaps and unlabeled.